The rain came down hard over the Nevada desert as thunder rolled in the sky and lightning lit up the dark clouds. Jake Rylan, a lone scavenger and former mechanic, wandered through the scrapyard wearing a torn jacket and old boots, his flashlight flickering with every gust of wind. He was searching for spare parts like he always did, hoping to find something worth trading. The yard was filled with broken cars, rusted metal, and forgotten tech from another time. But under an old, crushed sedan, something unusual caught his eye. It wasn't shaped like any car part, and it wasn't rusted or covered in dirt like everything else. It was a black box, smooth like glass, and about the size of a toolbox. No buttons, no lights, just a soft hum, like a living thing breathing. Jake knelt and picked it up carefully. The surface was cold and strange. He thought it might be military tech, maybe secret government gear tossed out by mistake. Curious, he shoved it into his backpack and walked home through the storm. At his small cabin in the hills, he placed the box on his workbench. His old dog, Max, growled and backed away. The lights in the room flickered again. Jake sat down and examined it. There were no hinges, no wires, nothing he could pry open. It didn't even seem to have weighted, felt heavier and lighter at the same time, like it didn't belong in this world. That night, weird things started happening. His phone died without warning, and when he tried to charge it, it sparked and melted. His laptop refused to turn on. The wind outside howled louder than usual, and Max wouldn't stop barking at the box. Jake barely slept. The next morning, he woke to a low humming that filled the entire cabin. He stepped outside and looked up. The sky was changing. Clouds twisted into spirals. The wind stopped. Everything went silent for one long, strange moment. Then the sky exploded with light. A massive alien ship appeared out of nowhere, hovering above the treetops like a floating mountain wrapped in glowing blue fire. Its hull was black with veins of silver light running across it. The ground shook. Jake stood frozen, the box still, in his hands. The ship made no sound, but every device on Earth, from radios to televisions, suddenly came alive with a single voice. It was powerful, calm, and terrifying. It spoke words no human had ever heard before, but somehow everyone understood. Return the vault, or your world will fall. The message repeated again and again, and then the skies went dark. As people across the world panicked, Jake remained still in his backyard, staring up at the ship with disbelief. The alien queen herself appeared in a flash of silver light, standing tall on a platform that floated above the ground. She was unlike anything Jake had ever imagined. Towering, elegant, terrifying. Her skin shimmered like glass. Her 6 arms folded with grace, and her eyes burned with silver fire. She didn't speak again. She only looked at Jake. Somehow, he knew she was there for the box. He didn't know what it was. He didn't know what vault meant. But he felt something deep in his chest. A weight, like the world had just been dropped on his shoulders. He stepped back, holding the box tighter. And in that moment, he understood one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever this box was, it wasn't ordinary. And he couldn't give it back. The sky turned red the next day, as the alien queen's words echoed across the planet. She hadn't made a threat. She had given a final warning. The cities of Earth soon felt her wrath. Giant alien ships darkened the skies over New York, Tokyo, London, and more. Without a sound, blue energy beams dropped from the heavens and destroyed power stations, satellites, and military bases in seconds. The world's defenses were crushed before they could even fire a shot. Chaos spread. People screamed and ran through the streets. Cars crashed. Planes fell from the sky. The Varelians had arrived tall, armored creatures with long arms and glowing eyes, their bodies covered in living metal that shifted and pulsed like it had a mind of its own. They came in waves, landing silently in drop pods that cracked the ground when they hit. They didn't speak. They simply moved through the cities, disabling everything human. Machines stopped, communications fell apart, and people started to vanish. Jake Rylan, hiding in his cabin deep in the hills, watched the nightmare unfold through the few working signals he could find. His generator still worked, though it sparked more than it should. The black box he had taken pulsed gently beside him, always warm, never changing. He knew the box was the reason this was happening. If he gave it back, maybe they'd stop. But something inside told him it wouldn't be that simple. They had already killed thousands without hesitation. Would they really show mercy? He didn't think so. So he packed up what he could: tools, water, food. The box then left his cabin behind. He had no destination, just the instinct to move, to get away from the skies. He hiked through dry mountains, slept under trees, and stayed far from roads. Days passed before someone found him. He had made camp near an old mine when a small team arrived in the night for people, armed but not dressed like soldiers. One woman stepped forward, her eyes sharp and tired. She introduced herself as Dr. Helen Voss, a scientist from a secret research division that had studied alien tech for years. She knew about the vault Corthobox Jake had danned. She knew he had it. Her team wasn't there to take it. They were there to help him. Helen explained that the box was older than any known alien race. It was a key, a map, a data core, and possibly more. And the alien queen wasn't after it because it was dangerous. She was after it because it held power. She couldn't control power. She feared Jake didn't trust them at first. After one of the alien patrols found their camp and attacked without warning, he had no choice but to work with them. The Varelians moved like shadows, fast and deadly, their weapons melting stone and wood alike. Jake and Helen barely escaped with their lives, fleeing down narrow caves while explosions shook the earth above. 2 of Helen's people died buying time for them to escape. When they finally stopped to rest in an old rail tunnel, Jake saw the look in her eyes. She was scared too, not just of the aliens, but of what would happen if the vault core fell into the wrong hands as they traveled together. She showed him parts of the vault's map holograms that danced in the air when Jake held the box. It only responded to him, like it had chosen him for some reason neither of them could understand. The map showed star systems, planets long forgotten, a strange place marked only with one symbol: the crown. Helen believed it was an ancient weapon hidden by a race that no longer existed. If the queen got it, she could destroy not just Earth, but any planet that resisted her rule. So that was when Jake realized this wasn't just about him anymore. It was holding the last hope of Earth, and maybe more than that. They moved through the shadows of a broken world, avoiding the skies, hiding from patrols, listening to the news of more fallen cities. The alien queen's army was hunting him, tracking the energy signature of the box. Every time he used it, they got closer, but he had no choice. The vault needed to be unlocked, and only he could do it. He didn't want to be a hero, didn't want to be part of any war, but now the war had found him, and the whole world was waiting for what he would do next. ChatGPT said, underground groups all over the world started rising once the full scale of the alien attacks became clear. People didn't want to live on their knees. Old enemies joined hands. Countries that had once been rivals now sent messages through broken satellites, forming a new alliance, the Earth Defense Pact. They shared what little technology remained, traded secrets, and united under one goal: survival. In hidden bunkers and ruined cities, engineers, hackers, and soldiers began to rebuild. They used broken alien weapons, pieces of fallen ships, and knowledge from people like Dr. Helen Voss. She had been studying alien signals for years, but with Jake and the Vault Core, she finally had something real to work with. Together, they learned that the box wasn't just a map. It was a machine filled with blueprints, energy codes, and strange data that only reacted to Jake's presence. The box somehow knew who he was, even though he didn't understand why. Helen believed it had chosen him not by accident, but because of something deep in his DNA, something ancient. While she worked on unlocking more of the box's secrets, Jake became the face of the resistance. His picture spread through hidden channels and old radio towers. Some called him a hero, others called him a fool. But everyone knew one thing: he was the reason the aliens hadn't won yet. With Helen's help, Earth's engineers started copying pieces of alien technology. They built new types of weapons rifles that shot magnetic pulses, grenades that bent gravity, armor made from nanofibers taken off Varelian soldiers. Even better, They fixed old fighter jets using alien engines, turning them into fast, deadly machines that could fly higher and hit harder than anything before. Jake trained with pilots, walked through old hangars now glowing with strange power, and slowly realized he was no longer just a scavenger. He was part of something bigger. He led the first Rada surprise attack on a Varelian warship orbiting Mars. The mission was risky. Their fleet had only 10 ships, most of them built from scrap and hope. But they had one thing the aliens didn't expect: humans who refused to give up. The battle over Mars lit up space like a second sun. Earth's ships flew low and fast, dodging alien fire with tight rolls and sudden bursts. Jake's ship was hit early, and he nearly died when the cockpit filled with smoke. But he kept flying. He led the others through the enemy's weak spots. Guided by maps the box had shown him, Varelian fighters scrambled to respond, but they were too late. The resistance crashed through their shields, planted bombs inside the alien ship, and exploded its core from within. Mars turned red again, this time with alien fire. Earth had won a battle, not the war, but it was the first sign of hope. Queen felt it. Her voice came again across the stars, angrier than before. She promised no mercy now. Her ships doubled in number. Her soldiers became more brutal. Entire regions of Earth were cut off, choked by alien fog and electric storms. But Earth kept fighting. Jake kept moving. He and Helen traveled from base to base, sharing what they had learned, helping others use the Vault Core's data. Wherever they went, people saluted him, not as a soldier, but as a symbol. The man who held the key. The man who carried the box that could change everything. He felt the weight of it more every day, not just in his hands, but in his heart. He had never asked for this. But now that he had it, he wouldn't run. Then the box showed something new, a place far beyond the solar system. A symbol glowing at the edge of the map, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. Helen called it the crown, and believed it was what the Queen truly wanted, a forgotten weapon buried on a distant world. If Jake could find it first, maybe they could turn the war around for good. The problem was getting there. Earth didn't have ships fast enough to reach that far. But the box also showed another answer: how to build a gate. A way to fold space, to travel in seconds where it would take years. The plans were complex, risky, and unstable. But Earth had no better option, and so began a new mission: build the gate. Find the crown. Stop the Queen. As workers rushed to build the gate near the ruins of an old launch site, Jake stood beneath the night sky, holding the box close. The stars looked peaceful from below, but he knew what waited out there: fire, death, a queen who would burn whole worlds to stop him. But he was ready. The world had given him its last hope, and he would carry it through the stars, no matter what waited on the other side. The gate stood tall in the desert, built from metal, alien cores, and hope. It hummed with strange energy as wires sparked and lights blinked, its circular mouth dark and waiting. Teams worked day and night, guarded by Earth's last soldiers. While engineers followed the box's blueprints piece by piece, Helen stayed near Jake, always guiding, always watching the signals, trying to understand what would happen when the gate was opened. They didn't know if it would work. They didn't even know if it would hold once they stepped through. But there was no time left to wait. The alien queen had sent more ships covering half the sky, and her message was clear: if the Vault Core crossed into space, she would burn Earth to ash. Jake listened to her voice in the wind, felt the power of her army pressing closer. Up! He didn't step back. He had made his choice. When the gate flared open for the first time, his mouth burned with blue fire, and the sky above twisted like it was folding into itself. The air trembled. Every living creature nearby felt it in their bones. Jake stepped forward in a new suit-lightweight armor built from alien metals. It's fitted with a breathing mask and a gravity anchor in case the other world had no air. He carried the Vault Core in a sealed pack on his back, its glow now stronger than ever. Helen gave him a nod and placed a small communicator in his ear. It crackled, but her voice came through. If anything goes wrong, we shut the gate, you understand? Jake nodded, said nothing, and walked into the light. The world twisted around him. His body felt pulled, stretched, broken, then snapped. Together all at once? He landed hard on rocky ground, knees shaking, ears ringing. He looked up slowly and saw a different sky green, clouds drifting across a black sun. Strange mountains shaped like bones in the distance. The planet was dead silent, as if time itself had stopped. The vault core pulsed like a heartbeat, guiding him forward. He walked through valleys filled with stone towers and ruins too old to name. The place had once been home to something, but now it was empty. No wind, no birds, no life. But something watched him. He could feel it. Hours passed as he followed the core's pull deeper into the ruins. Finally, he reached a crater in the ground, wide as a stadium. And there at its center was the crown. It wasn't a crown in shape. It was a sphere floating above a platform, surrounded by symbols written in light. As he stepped closer, the vault core leapt from his pack and hovered toward the sphere. The air shook. Lightning flickered in the clouds. Then, the alien queen's voice thundered through the sky. She had followed him. The gate hadn't closed fast enough. Her ships burst through it like knives through paper, tearing open the sky above the dead world. She didn't speak in words now. She screamed in fury, her army raining down in black pods, thousands of Varelians pouring from the skies. Jake had only minutes. He ran forward and placed his hand on the sphere. The vault core snapped into it like a puzzle piece, and everything stopped. The symbols around the sphere lit up, spinning faster, glowing brighter. Images filled Jake's mind galaxies, wars, creatures from before time, and then silence. A single voice spoke to him from the crown, soft and ancient. It asked only one thing: will you carry the fire? Jake didn't understand, but he said yes. The fire filled him. His body burned with energy, and the sphere cracked open. A wave of power exploded outward, knocking the alien army back. Varelians turned to ash. Ships in the sky lost control and crashed. The queen screamed again, not from rage but fear. Jake fell to his knees as the energy passed, smoke rising from his armor, his hands glowing faintly. The crown was now silent, dead. Its gift had been given. He had it now, Helen's. The voice came through the static in his ear. "Jake, do you read me?" He breathed hard, then answered, "I'm here. It's done." She didn't speak for a moment. Then she said, "We saw the sky light up. They're pulling back." Jake looked around the ruined world. It was still and quiet again, but now it felt like something had changed. Not just on this planet, but across the stars. The queen had tasted fear. And Jake now held something more powerful than any weapon. He turned toward the gate, ready to return home. Earth still burned. But now, it had fire of its own. The return to Earth was not peaceful. As Jake stepped through the gate, the desert around the launch site was already under attack. The alien queen had not retreated. She had only pulled back to strike harder. Her ships had covered the skies. Like a storm of black wings, and Varelian ground forces marched across the sands with weapons that burned the very air. The defenders fought with everything they had, but their numbers were small, and their hope was fading fast. Explosions shook the earth as Jake stumbled out of the gate, still glowing faintly with the crown's power. His body felt heavy, and the fire inside him flickered like a fading flame, but the sight of Earth under siege forced him to move. He looked at the burning horizon, then at Helen, who was shouting into a radio, blood running down the side of her face. Their eyes met, and without words they both knew this was at the final stand. The last chance. Jake ran to the command post where Earth's last fleet had gathered. A strange mix of patched-up human jets and salvaged alien tech, some barely able to fly. The air was full of smoke and screaming engines. Generals, scientists, and engineers all worked side by side, tired and wounded but still standing. Helen helped Jake to a table covered in star maps and energy readouts. The Crown's data had changed. Now it wasn't showing just locations, it was showing weaknesses. Varelian ship layouts, energy shield gaps, and a pattern in their attacks. that no human could have seen before. The Queen had grown confident, too confident. Jake saw the lines, saw the opening. He pointed to the heart of the alien fleet, one ship larger than the rest, pulsing with command signals. "That's her," he said. "That's where she is." They built the plan in minutes. There was no time left for long speeches or full repairs. A strike team would launch straight through the alien blockade, heading for the Queen's ship. Jake would go with them, carrying what remained of the Crown's fire inside him. If they reached the ship's core and released that power again, it might end everything in one strike. Or it might kill them all. Either way, they had no choice. The strike ships lifted off, engines screaming, cutting through smoke and fire. Alien fighters swarmed them instantly, but the new human tech held. Magnetic cannons fired in bursts, blasting ships into dust. Gravity mines created whirlpools in the air, sucking enemy ships into spinning black holes. Jake's fighter flew in the lead, his hands steady on the controls. His mind focused only on the Queen's ship ahead. They broke through layer after layer of alien defenses, dodging beams, missiles, and clouds of deadly drones. One by one, his team was hit. 2 ships fell behind and vanished in fire. Another exploded just beside him, showering his hull in burning metal. But he kept going, pushing the engine beyond its limits. When he reached the Queen's ship, it opened like a giant claw, revealing a glowing center full of silver light.
Ow.
He flew straight into its mouth. The inside of the ship was alive. Walls shifted, pulsed, breathed. What had built it had grown like a living thing. Jake jumped out of the cockpit and ran through the halls with the fire burning inside him, the vault core now a bright star on his back. He faced Guardstall, monstrous Varelians with blades for arms, but with a touch of his hand, their weapons. Shattered. The fire wasn't just energy. It was truth, memory, time. And it tore through lies like paper. He reached the Queen's chamber at last. She stood tall, waiting for him. Her crown floated above her head, made of stars and flame, her 6 arms spread wide. She spoke without words, her voice echoing in his skull. She offered him power, a throne beside her, a place in her empire. But Jake shook his head. "You've already lost," he said, stepping forward. The room became a storm fire, lightning, screams. He fought not with fists, but with light. Every memory of Earth, every face, every voice he had ever loved burned within him. And he let it all go in one final burst. The fire roared out of him and struck the Queen. She screamed, not in pain but in fear, as her body shattered into shards of light. The ship began to collapse. Jake fell to the floor, exhausted, smoke rising from his skin. He called to Helen with the last bit of strength he had. "It's done," he whispered. The signal reached Earth. All across the sky, alien ships stopped. Moving, one by one, they crashed, vanished, or simply froze. The battle ended in silence. Soldiers looked up and dropped their weapons. The war was over. Jake closed his eyes as the Queen's ship crumbled around him. Body and lifted him away, the last spark of the crown carrying him home. ChatGPT said, the world was quiet after the war. The skies, once filled with smoke and fire, were clear again. Cities still lay in ruins, forests were scorched, and the oceans held the wreckage of fallen ships. But for the first time in years, there was no sound of alien engines, no death rays lighting up the night. People stepped out of bunkers, shelters, and broken homes. They looked up and saw only the sun and stars. News spread fast. The Queen was gone, her army broken, and the last blast of the Crown's fire had wiped out her control over the ships and soldiers. But no one knew what had happened to Jake. He had vanished with the explosion, his signal lost, his ship torn apart with the Queen's. Some said he had died a hero. Others believed the Crown had taken him somewhere beyond the stars. Helen didn't believe he was gone. She worked in silence, rebuilding what she could. In a burned-out lab near the old gate site, she studied the final flashes of data sent from Jake's ship. Her eyes scanned the code again and again, trying to find one small sign of life, one clue that he might still be out there. And then one night, something lit up the old machines. A single signal, weak but steady, not from Earth, not even from the solar system. a message pulsing like a heartbeat in a language no machine had ever spoken except one. The vault core, now dim and silent in Helen's lab, flickered back to life. She dropped her tools and ran to it. The box opened slowly, showing a star. Map with one bright point flashing in deep space. The signal was coming from there. She called the other pilots engineers, the last leaders of the resistance, and showed them the map. The decision was made that very day. They would go after him. The gate was rebuilt, stronger this time. It stood once more under open sky, humming quietly with new energy. Ships were readied. This mission wasn't war, it was rescue. Helen herself stepped onto the lead ship, carrying the vault core and a quiet hope burning in her chest. When they jumped through the gate, the stars around them twisted and blurred, then settled. The new world was far away, colder, quieter, and floating just above its surface was a small ship, broken, but still whole. They found Jake inside, asleep, wrapped in faint light. His body was weak, but breathing. Crown's energy had kept him alive, sealed him in a protective field after the final blast. Helen placed her hand on his shoulder, and his eyes slowly opened. He looked up at her with a tired smile and whispered, "Did we win?" They brought him home. The world welcomed him not with parades, but with quiet gratitude. People came from all over just to see him, to shake his hand or leave a flower at his door. He didn't speak much after that. He didn't have to. His story had already spread across the stars. The box was placed in a new vault beneath the Earth's Defense Center, locked away but never forgotten. Helen visited it often, running her hands across its surface. She knew it still had secrets, but now was the time for peace. Slowly, the world rebuilt. Cities rose again. Children played in the streets. Songs were sung. And the scars of the war turned into stories, tales of a boy who found a strange box, a queen who tried to conquer everything, and a fire that burned brighter than any darkness. Jake walked among the people sometimes, unnoticed, just another face in the crowd. But to those who looked closely, there was always something in his eyes, something old, something powerful, something that had seen the edge of the universe and come back changed. He'd never touch the box again. He didn't need to. Its fire had lived through him, saved a world, and now rested in peace. And on quiet nights, when the stars were clear and the wind was soft, people swore they could hear a hum in the sky like the sound of a gate waiting to open, or the whisper of a crown that still watched over them from far, far away. Years passed. Earth healed slowly, but it healed. Grass grew where ash once lay. Buildings rose from broken stone, and laughter returned to places once filled with fear. Children were born who never knew war. They learned about it in stories, and saw pictures of alien ships and fire in the sky, but to them, it was history. Peace spread not just on Earth but beyond. The other planets in the solar system, once silent and empty, became homes for people. Mars grew green under new domes, and the moons of Jupiter flickered with human lights. The name of the alien queen faded into the past. Her empire was gone, her armies scattered like dust. But the memory of the fire, the crown's gift, remained in the hearts of all. Jake lived quietly. He never sought fame. He never gave speeches. But wherever he walked, people stepped aside with quiet respect. His eyes were older than his face, and some said when he touched a machine, it hummed like it remembered something. He spent most of his time near the mountain lakes, helping rebuild homes and teaching children how to plant trees. He didn't talk about the war, not even to Helen, but every night he looked at the stars. One morning something changed. The vault core locked deep beneath the Earth Defense Center woke up. Its lights blinked, slow and steady. Scientists rushed to it, unsure if it was dangerous. But the message it gave wasn't a warning, it was a map. It's a new one. A signal had arrived faint and far from a distant galaxy. It was not a threat. It was a call. Someone out there had found another vault, a different one, and they were asking for help. The council gathered, made of humans and alien allies who had joined Earth after the war. Many argued they should ignore it. The queen was gone. There was peace. Why risk it again? Jake stood quietly in the room, and when the arguing stopped, he said just one thing. If someone called out to us when we were dying, wouldn't we want them to answer? Silence followed. Then slowly, one by one, the council agreed. They built a new ship, the most powerful ever made, faster than light, shaped like a spear. It was made of earth steel and alien crystal, its core pulsing with the leftover fire from the crown. Jake would lead the journey, not as a soldier, but as a witness. Helen would go with him. So would a team of scientists, diplomats, and explorers. It wasn't a warship, it was a ship of hope. They called it Second Light. On launch day, the skies were full of watching eyes. Millions gathered across Earth to watch the ship rise, and as it climbed into the stars, the world held its breath. Jake sat quietly in the pilot's seat, hand resting on the controls. The stars stretching out before him. The journey was long, but the ship moved like a thought, faster than anything built before. It passed galaxies in weeks, flew through glowing clouds of stardust, and crossed rivers of light. The crew kept to their tasks, watching the map and following the call. When they arrived, the system was quiet. A single planet spun around a small sun, blue and green like Earth, but something was wrong. The surface showed signs of ruined, great cities fallen, skies dimmed. They landed in silence and stepped out into a world that had once been full of life. They found buildings built with care, towers of glass and gold, now cracked and crumbling. They found machines that still hummed faintly, trying to complete tasks long abandoned. And finally, in the center of a massive crater, they found the vault. It was different, taller, wrapped in roots and stone, glowing with slow pulses of blue. As Jake stepped forward, the vault opened. Figure waited inside, not human, but not fully alien either. It looked worn, like it had waited for centuries. The figure spoke slowly, its voice old and soft. It told them the story. This world had once been full of people, proud and peaceful. But like Earth, they had been attacked by the Queen long ago. They had fought and lost. Only a few had survived, hidden deep underground. The vault had kept them alive with its fire. But now that fire was dying, they had sent out the signal, hoping someone would come. Jake listened quietly, then offered his hand. The fire inside him answered. The crown's gift still lived within him, and it poured from his fingers into the vault. Light spread through the ruins, touching machines, walls, trees, even the soil. The world stirred again. From the ground, survivors stepped out slowly, thin, pale, blinking at the sky. They saw Jake, glowing faintly, and bowed in silence. Helen wept. The crew stood still, unsure of what had just happened. A dead world had been brought back to life. The mission was over. But something new had begun. They weren't just survivors of a war anymore. Were bearers of fire. And in the silence of space, other worlds waited, some in darkness, some in silence, some still fighting. The ship turned back toward the stars, and as Second Light left the planet behind, Jake watched the sky with quiet eyes, knowing their work was far from finished.